Follow along as I make a plush bunny from real fur. Robin's mink sleeves from her mink coat transformed into a bunny.
Today I'm going to be working on making a fur bunny, and I received 2 sleeves in the mail from the customer. She used her fur for another project and asked if I could use or make a fur bunny out of her sleeves, and I said of course. She also sent some supplemental fur from another project that she had. And I'm going to see if I can incorporate some of these pieces into the fur bunny. Perhaps maybe the foot pads or the pads on the arms. So I could use small, tiny little pieces. We'll see. She also sent in some black. Don't know if the black will be used. Depending on how much fur or available fur I have after I put all the pieces in, we'll see if I have to actually supplement any of it. So the way I go about doing this is the first thing I do is I trace the pattern onto pieces of muslin. And I mark every one of the pieces, and I am going to put them in the direction of the line of fur or the grain or the direction of the hair. And what I will do is I will take a glue stick, an Elmer's glue stick, and I like to use the purple kind so this way I can see where I'm placing the glue. And what I'll do is I will place the glue onto the fur, onto the template, and then I glue it onto the fur. And then after I will cut it out, and this just helps support the fur when I go to do the sewing, because it does take a lot of stitches, and I don't want to put too much stress on the fur itself. So I'm going to do the next part of the leg piece. And I'm going to do the same thing. Doesn't have to be a lot of glue, just enough. And now I missed a big piece here. I'm going to move it because I don't want to waste any little bit of fur if I can help it. I'm avoiding the bottom because this area here usually is very fragile. The bigger pieces I'm going to start doing next. So the back pieces are quite large. I'm going to put them in. And then I'm also going to do the other leg pieces. Now, I would love to be able to flip it, but I wouldn't be able to do that because what would happen is that the grain or the direction of the fur would be in the wrong direction. So again, I have to be really careful of how I place these pieces. So we have our back body, the legs, we have our front body, and now I'm just going to put them anywhere I see a space. I'm going to keep all the head pieces together. I'm going to take the two outer ears and I'm going to situate them up on top. And this is all the head pieces. The inner ear, I think I'm going to use the lighter colored fur, as well as the bottom of the feet. I'm going to use the lighter color fur. I have room here for an arm and the other arm. And then these are the last of the pieces that have to go in. So I'm going to do this in fast motion. So the next step is to cut the pieces out. And you could either use your furrier's knife and cut all the way around, or I'm going to use my serrated scissors. And I like using these for this particular kind of project because after I cut the piece out, I like to go in with my scissor tip and I like to get really close to the edge and snip that off. So this way it will reduce the bulk in the seam. So when I go to sew it together, it will lay flatter. Because I don't want a lot of bulk in a seam for a fur animal. It gets too bulky and then it's very, very hard to turn. Because once all these pieces are sewn together, they have to be turned out. And if it's too thick, there's always the danger that it will rip and tear. So I do the cutting over a garbage can, and I always have my vacuum cleaner running because there's always going to be fur that's going to be flying around, and I don't want that all over the room. So what I decided to do was use the lighter fur for the ears, and here's the inner ears, and the direction of the fur is going down. And I'm also going to use the extra fur that was given to me for the bottom of the foot pads, and again, both going in the same direction. All this extra fur that's hanging will not be used, and I will return it to the owner. Once those pieces are cut out, then I'm going to start on the next pieces as well.
As I stated before, it's really important to cut these pieces over a garbage can, and after I make the cut, I take my vacuum and I run the vacuum along the edges of the fur that I just cut on both sides. This prevents a lot of flyaway that would naturally occur with a project like this. After it's cut, sort out the pieces and lay them out.
So on my regular domestic machine, I'm going to be sewing about 1/4 of an inch all the way around. And I'm going to do this for all the pieces. And then once all the pieces are put together, I'm going to then bring these pieces to the fur machine, and I'm going to use the overlock stitch to just tie this all in, and it's going to look really clean, and it's going to be a very strong hold.
Depending on the pattern you have, you're going to follow the directions in the order in which they show you. Here I've already started the headpiece. Most of the headpiece is complete. I'm working on the ears. I use clips all the way around to help hold those two fur pieces together. I'm using a lighter fur and a darker fur. I sew it 1/4 of an inch all the way around. Double check always to make sure that both sides of the fur are actually caught under the needle, because sometimes it does slip. And then from here, once this is all done, I'm going to bring it to the fur machine and do the overlock stitch all the way around the edges. I've already attached the ears here, and then I'm going to double check to make sure that the ears are secure and that they are stitched well into the head. From here, I'm going to now start working on the face, and that's the eye placement of the safety eyes and the safety nose. So I'm going to use some pins, and I'm going to place them approximately where I think that they will look good, and I have to double check to make sure that they are even and that they look appropriate. Sometimes I have to flip the head around because the pins do not want to stay in, and then I poke a little needle in for the nose, and now I have an idea of what the bunny will look like once I put in the safety eyes. Now I have a variety of safety eyes depending on the size of the project. I usually like to give bunnies colored eyes, and I will preview the eye next to the fur, and I usually pick the eye that I think looks best with the fur, which one's going to stand out the most. And then I pick a cute little bunny nose, which is usually the pink nose. From here, I have to pick out the appropriate backing size, so this way the eyes and the nose will stay in place. From here, I'm going to take my sharp scissor tip, and I'm going to poke a hole into the eye, or where the needle is placed. Now you could use an owl for this. I sometimes use that, but I didn't have it with me. And I'm struggling a little bit here with putting in the eye, because once I put the eye in, it went through the fur perfectly well. No problem going through the fur, but I was having an issue finding the hole within the muslin piece, that's the backing, because as soon as I removed the scissor, the hole closed. So I had to do a little push, push, push to try to get it in, and then finally I just snipped it on the inside because the muslin was not giving way, and I pushed it through. From then you add on the appropriate size. That one was a little too small, so I had to switch it out with a different size. The pink ring that I have on my hand really is a seam ripper, or not even a seam ripper. It has a tiny little blade in there, so I can take the thread, run it along the inside, and it will cut the threads. So it's really a thread cutter. Here I'm running into the same issue, trying to get the eye in, but the eye isn't going in because of the muslin. Snip the back a little bit, just enough so the point of the eye can push through. So now I have to work on the nose area. Here it's a little tricky because I want to get really close to where the seam is, but I don't want to poke all the way into the seam because I don't want to cause any damage there. So I don't want the seam to split. So it's usually just slightly above the seam. And then he's done. So the eyes are in place and the nose is in place, and then I'm going to, once he's stuffed, I'm going to have to trim the fur around the eyes and around the nose. I'm also going to be putting in a black line right around the nose area as well. He doesn't look like much now because he's not stuffed. Next, we start on working on the rest of the body parts, the arms, the legs. Here's the foot pads. They're going to be going on next. The feet are complete. Here's the back, and I've already attached my label on the inside. And I turned out the hands, or the arms. And here I am turning out the foot area. I use a, I guess it's a forceps. And it's also great because I can actually push the fur in with it as well as gripping it. But I don't grip it so tight that it's going to rip. There's the body with the arms attached, and then the legs. And there he is, not stuffed. Here he is partly stuffed. With this particular pattern, you stuff him in the back of the head area, and then that's going to be closed with a thick thread. I have my label in the back. You always put your label. And there he is. He's absolutely the cutest thing ever. Come visit us at dinahsquilts.com.